My name is Cassandra, and at 29, I never imagined I would be standing in the middle of a family war, all over a house, not just any house, but the Victorian home that belonged to my grandmother, Eleanor, for 10 years. Every single Sunday without fail, I visited her, I cooked with her, gardened with her, and sat on her porch talking for hours about life. Meanwhile, my sister Amanda, who lived just 30 minutes away, could rarely be bothered to even call. So when Grandma passed and left the house to me, I thought everyone would understand why. I thought, just this once, it would be obvious who had earned her trust, but I was wrong. At the will reading, the air was thick with unspoken tension. My father didn't even hesitate, he stood up, his voice sharp and commanding. "Sign it over to your sister, she needs it more than you." The words echoed through the oak-paneled office like a slap. Amanda smirked, as if she had expected it all along. My mother stared at me with that disappointed look she reserved for when I wasn't being agreeable. No one expected what I did next. But before I tell you what was in the letter Grandma left me, the letter that changed everything, you should know why this battle was never really about a house. Growing up, my connection with Grandma Eleanor was unlike anything else in my family. She wasn't just my grandmother, she was my best friend, my safe place, the person who saw me when everyone else looked right past me. Her Victorian home became my sanctuary. Every corner of it held memories, the creaky wooden stairs, the jars of buttons in her sewing room, the shelves stacked with books that smelled of dust and age. From the time I was small, weekends meant Grandma's house. We baked her snickerdoodle cookies, always with too much cinnamon because she knew I loved it. She showed me how to trim roses without getting pricked, how to fold sheets perfectly, and how to find joy in the simplest of routines. On rainy days, we curled up on her couch watching black and white films. On summer evenings, we sat on her porch swing, sipping sweet tea as fireflies lit up the yard. When I started nursing school, those visits became more sacred. My schedule was brutal, overnight shifts, endless exams, but Sundays were untouchable. At exactly 11, I'd walk through her door, and no matter how tired I was, her smile would breathe life back into me. Together, we'd cook, eat, and talk about everything from my patients to her childhood growing up during the war. "Cassie," she'd say, patting my hand, "don't let the world harden you. You have a soft heart, that's your strength." And I believed her. Amanda never showed up. She was always too busy finding herself, though her version of that usually meant chasing some new scheme. She dropped out of college 3 times, each attempt funded by our parents. She worked retail for a few months, waitressed until she was fired, and joined 3 different pyramid schemes, all of which she abandoned when they didn't make her rich overnight. By 32, the only thing Amanda was consistent at was failing, yet somehow, in my parents' eyes, she was still the golden child. Every time she missed rent, they paid it. Every time she wrecked a car, they bought her another. Meanwhile, I worked double shifts to afford my small 1-bedroom apartment and my second-hand Honda. The pattern was always the same: Amanda created chaos, and I was expected to clean it up, or at least to step aside so my parents could. When she borrowed my prom dress and returned it stained, my mother told me, "Don't make a fuss." When she dipped into my graduation fund, my father said, "Family helps family." When she stumbled into my nursing school graduation late and hungover, I was told, "That's just Amanda." But Grandma saw through it, she always did. "Cassie," she told me once, kneeling beside me in the garden as we planted tulips, "being reliable is both your gift and your burden. People will take until you have nothing left. Don't forget that you're allowed to say no." Those words stayed with me. When her health declined, there was no question who would be there. I took leave from the hospital to care for her. I measured her medications, cooked meals she could tolerate, drove her to appointments, and stayed up through nights when pain wouldn't let her sleep. I read to her when her eyesight failed and held her hand when the silence grew too heavy. Amanda visited once, 45 minutes, most of it on her phone. She left early because she had plans. The night Grandma passed away, I was the one holding her hand. I whispered that I loved her, that I'd be okay, even as my chest cracked open with grief. At the funeral, Amanda put on a performance, crying loud and dramatic, telling anyone who would listen how close she and Granny Elle were. I bit my tongue, too drained to expose her lies. But the family tension began almost immediately. The day after the funeral, my mother called me. Her tone was carefully casual. "Did Grandma ever talk to you about her will?" she asked. "No," I said. "Why?" "Well," she sighed, "Amanda's really counting on some help. You know how tight things are for her." That was their way of saying, whatever Grandma left you, hand it over. But Grandma hadn't just left me a house, she had left me a choice, and a letter that explained exactly why she made it. And for once in my life, I wasn't going to play the role of the quiet, understanding daughter. This time, I was going to fight back. The driveway felt surreal, like a photograph left out in the sun too long, the colors beginning to fade. The garden, once Grandma Eleanor's pride, was already showing signs of neglect. The rose bushes drooped under their own weight, their blooms beginning to wilt. Weeds crept between the stepping stones. Dead leaves had gathered across the porch, a careless scatter that Grandma would never have tolerated. She had always insisted that order in the garden reflected order in the heart. I stood there for a long moment, the key heavy in my hand, before finally sliding it into the lock. The house opened to me with a faint creak, and I stepped inside, almost expecting to hear her voice calling out, "Cassie, that you?" Instead, there was silence. The air smelled like her. Lavender from the sachets she kept in every drawer. Old books from the shelves that lined the living room. The sharp lemon tang of furniture polish she used religiously, buffing her antiques until they gleamed. That scent hit me like a memory, like walking into her hug, like being 8 years old again and watching her polish the mahogany sideboard while humming an old hymn. I moved through the room slowly, touching everything as if my fingertips could absorb what remained of her. In the kitchen, her apron still hung on the hook beside the pantry, a faded floral pattern that had seen decades of Sunday roasts and cookie batches. The spice rack was neatly labeled in her handwriting, though some jars were nearly empty. In the living room, her reading glasses lay folded on the side table next to her armchair. A mystery novel rested there too, a bookmark still jutting out like a silent reminder that she had meant to finish it, but never would. When I reached her bedroom, I stopped in the doorway. The bed was perfectly made, tucked tight with hospital corners as she had always taught me. A hand-stitched quilt, the one she'd pieced together during long winter evenings, lay folded at the end. Standing there, the reality of her absence pressed down on me until it became a physical ache in my chest. But alongside that ache, something else stirred. A quiet certainty. Grandma Eleanor had known exactly what she was doing when she left me this house. She hadn't done it to punish anyone or to play favorites. She had done it because this home had been filled with love between us, and she wanted that love to endure long after she was gone. I locked the door carefully when I left, lingering for a moment on the porch. Torn between the loyalty I felt to Grandma's wishes and the old conditioning that told me peacekeeping was my duty, I finally got in my car. My parents' house awaited, and I already knew tonight's dinner would be no ordinary meal. I arrived at exactly 6:30, the time my mother had insisted upon. Their colonial-style home, where Amanda and I had grown up, looked just as it always had, blue shutters, freshly trimmed hedges, the porch light flickering faintly in the dusk. My father's Buick sat neatly in the driveway, polished as ever. Amanda's SUV was parked crooked beside it, overflowing with fast food wrappers and toys scattered across the back seat. I pulled in behind them and sat gripping the steering wheel, inhaling deeply as if oxygen alone could prepare me for the ambush I knew was coming. The moment I stepped through the front door, the tension hit me like walking into a storm. My mother was in the kitchen, the rhythm of her knife against the cutting board sharp and angry. My father sat at the dining table, a stack of papers in front of him like ammunition he planned to fire at me. Amanda was nowhere in sight, though I could hear her voice upstairs, high-pitched and careless, probably gossiping on the phone. "There she is," my father said flatly, not bothering to rise. "We were beginning to think you might not show." "I said I'd be here," I replied, slipping off my jacket and hanging it on the coat rack. My voice was steady, but my heart thumped hard against my ribs. "Where are the kids?" I asked, half hoping their presence might soften what was coming. "Troy took them to his mother's for the night," my mother called from the kitchen without looking up. "We thought it would be better to have an adult conversation without distractions." Translation: no witnesses to the pressure they were about to apply. Dinner was a quiet, tense affair. My mother had made pot roast, my favorite, which immediately put me on edge. She only cooked my favorite meals when she wanted something, and it was never something small. The silence stretched thin until my father finally cleared his throat, the sound rehearsed. "Cassandra, your mother and I have been thinking about this situation with Grandma's house," he began, his tone calm in the way it always was right before he said something unreasonable. "We understand you feel attached to the place because of your relationship with her, but we need to look at this practically." I chewed my bite of roast slowly, stalling, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of immediate response. "The fact is," he continued, "Amanda has 3 children and no stable housing situation. You're single, you have a good career, and you already have a place to live. It just makes sense for Amanda to have the house. Not to mention," my mother chimed in, placing her knife down with a deliberate clatter, "Amanda could really use the financial security. With the house, she wouldn't have to worry about rent. She could finally focus on finding a good job and providing for the children." I set my fork down with care, my hands tightening in my lap. "Amanda has had 10 years to find a good job, Mom. What makes you think inheriting Grandma's house will suddenly make her responsible? The room went cold. That's unfair, Cassandra, my father said sharply. Your sister has had some setbacks, but she's trying her best. Is she? I asked, my voice stronger than I expected. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like she spent her entire adult life avoiding responsibility while everyone else rushes to bail her out.